relentless prosecution of criminals. I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately, without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratuities. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of the JSO. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement. Now, other agencies and departments are probably, if they don't have the same verbiage in their oaths, they're probably going to have something similar to that. And from the things that we're aware of, and that things we've seen with our own eyes and heard with our own ears, many things in that oath of office is constantly being violated. So Sergeant Terry, Vito Terry, last week, he brought up a suggestion that everybody, especially at roll calls prior to any shifts for the patrol officers, to recite that oath, just like they did the Pledge of Allegiance when they were in grade school, especially when we were in elementary school, we did. They keep it the more you repeat something, the more it sticks, and you have no excuse to say, well, I didn't know, because you recite it every day. So I'm turning on to my partners. What y'all take on that?
Hey, I want to, I'm sure y'all did too. We had to say that every morning in the academy before any learning or anything got started. We had to recite that every day. But I look at that, I'm listening to you say that, and it amazes me how far from that oath people in law enforcement profession stray. And I don't know. I don't even know if saying it every day would even matter, Smoke. I know it's a reminder. Because even when you was reading it, it brought me back to, those mornings where we'd have to stand there and recite that every day before anything got started. But if you just stuck by the words in that oath, man, you'd be fine. You wouldn't have no issues in law enforcement.
That's what I got from it, and what I did after Smoke forwarded to us, I went on ahead and I went through it and separated each individual line and each individual statement so I could let it marinate, so I could feel it all over again. And it does move you if you believe in those words. Those words have integrity in it. Those words have honor in it. Those words have obligation in it, and it's what we all came on the department for. It's what we wanted to do. It's what we wanted to be. It's what we strive for. And again, I think reciting it every day just kind of reinforces that. But you also need leadership to develop those traits and to ensure that it stays at the forefront. So I do think it's worth at least every 2 to 4 years making every officer sign that pledge or that oath, or once again, because I only took it that one time, but to do it regularly every 2 to 4 years when we do recertifications or in-service training, take that oath again, the full pledge, and let it marinate. So they mean something, but you can't just read it as a newspaper article. I think you have to let it sink in and marinate.
I totally agree. And again, I'm gonna say the problems that we have in this profession, which you got issues in other professions, but most of it centers around people that violate that oath. They go against the words that are in that oath. And it's as simple as it is, rolling off your tongue to read it. And then when we used to have to recite it, you would think particularly people that jump into this kind of work, it's laid out for you. If you follow that oath, you won't have any issues. We just have too many that don't follow it. And probably of those that don't follow it, don't know it.
Yeah. And as I was reading it, I was seeing specific incidents that is happening right now today. And I was like, that's a violation of oath. That's a violation of oath. That's a violation of oath. And I'm like, they are so, like you said, Law, law enforcement is coming so far removed from this oath. And then I'm looking at all the political leaders, and I know they take a different oath because every profession has a creed of ethics, and some type of oath that they take. So, but I was looking at the lack of principles. I mean, you're seeing the flip-flopping in the line that they just on display. And I'm like, if you're a person of principle, it don't waver from year to year or election to election or who's in charge. If you have any strength of character and any principle foundations that you stand on, none of this should change. And they just flip-flop back and forth. And this is what our leaders has become. No principles at all.
Going back to leadership, when you come out of the academy, I know I was, and you guys probably was the same too. You bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, you ready to conquer war, make a difference in the community and everything. And your first supervisor is your FTO, your field training officer. And I recall one of the first, you know how you buy a helium balloon from the store and it's full, and then when you take it out, overnight, it then lost some of the air. What took the air out of some of that is, you get in the car and then it's time to go eat somewhere, and it's like, okay, we're gonna go someplace and it's gonna be FHP, free or half price. And that's like, wait a minute, that's taking a gratuity. In the academy, they said we're not supposed to do that. Like, no, but that's what we do. Whatever you learn in the academy, don't worry about that. So that's one of the first violations that you're doing. And it's not a major thing. It's not like you're taking money out of the bank, but it's still, like Sam was saying, it's still a violation of that oath.
Yeah.
Because the people in that business, that restaurant, it's a quid pro quo. They want the police being there, that police presence, that's free security for them. 9 times out of 10, nobody within their right mind is going to come in there with a gun and rob them while the police car is parked inside and uniformed officers are inside eating. It's not going to happen. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah. So.
And from there, that's when it spirals. Because if you get away with one thing, then it's like, okay, you constantly pushing the goal line. It's like, okay, we did that, we violated that. Well, that wasn't such a big deal. Well, what about doing this? Oh, that ain't such a big deal. You can fudge a little bit on the report. Did he really roll a stop sign or did he stop? Or you just want to look in the car because he looked like a drug dealer's car. So let's get him on the roll and stop.
Right.
But it actually, before cameras on everybody's car and body cams, it was a lot of people that was doing that. They were giving people tickets for stuff that they didn't do. And that's one of those, that's the ethics, and that's that oath of office violation, and which leads to, you spiral into, now you end up pushing it so far along, then you stealing from people, then you end up killing somebody.
It's those small, minute things like what you say, how it starts, and those small violations of those oath starts to turn into bigger things and bigger things. And at each step, as the violations get bigger, you realize, okay, I didn't get in trouble for that, or I didn't get caught for that. So they keep mounting up, and it goes back, Sam, to what you said a minute ago. It shouldn't take a body camera or somebody watching you for you to do what's right, particularly if you're taking an oath to do what's right. But here we have, and I don't know, I guess you could say, or some people would say which violations of the oath are small enough that it's not a big deal. And I would say violation of any of it is a big deal because it leads to bigger violations.
Yeah.
It leads to the stuff like what we saw today. Oh boy, getting arrested for that foolishness.
Propositioning.
And for
Now,
the,
how many times has he done that and nothing has happened?
Right.
well, it's stated that, as a matter of fact, as I'm sure, like I said, our platform is kind of coast to coast, so it's a lot of people they're not aware of what we're actually discussing right now. But this is a Jacksonville police officer was arrested on bribery charges. It says this was today. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is facing charges for allegedly asking a crime victim for inappropriate pictures. 36-year-old Brian Robert Pace, a former police officer with JS, is now behind bars after serving with JSO for 11 years. Sheriff's Office says that in May, Pace answered a call about a 30-year-old woman who had her cell phone and another item stolen. He took a report basically over the phone, and then he reinitiated contact with her shortly thereafter, claiming to have her property. And that was what the Undersheriff Pat Alvey with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office said. Alvey also said that Pace was charged for one count of bribery, which is a second-degree felony. Alvey stated that Pace asked the woman for inappropriate photos in exchange for her phone back. The arrest report goes on to say detectives watched Pace in the parking lot after the suspect, which is Pace, agreed to meet up with the victim to give her back her phone. Police say he was arrested and detained and taken in for questioning. This came from Action News from Jax. Their law and safety expert was Dale Carson. Stated that bribery is a serious offense. It's punishable up to 15 years and also a federal offense. A Hobbs Act violation, which is up to 20 years. So he could sustain just from this behavior a considerable amount of time in custody. That's what the safety expert Dale Carson stated. Then here we go back with what you were just stating about the history. Action News Jack got a hold of his employee history at JSO. We found Pace received at least 6 other complaints from 2009 to 2012. 3 complaints of failure to conform to work standards was sustained and written warnings were given. Pace spent time as a bailiff correction officer until he finally became a police officer in 2017. Sheriff's Office told Action News Jackson is the 7th JSO employee to be arrested and the 3rd officer in 2020. And going back to what we said before, being held accountable, if those other 6 complaints for failure to conform work standards were sustained and written warnings were given, I very rarely, I had to fight tooth and nail, for some bogus complaints against me to be dropped down to a written warning, which it shouldn't even have been at first, but it took me all that to go. And like I said, I didn't get any progressive discipline. It was like they want to throw the book at me day one, the first violation, the first, complaint. But if this guy, 6 complaints, and he all got written warnings, he probably figured, okay, I'm just gonna get he probably didn't think he was gonna get caught for one. But due to his, his disciplinary history, so it wasn't a big deal because all they're gonna do is give me another written complaint, a written violation,
I don't know how that interaction took place between him and his supervisor, but if it was me early on in an officer's career, or even a veteran officer, when something that is minor on the surface comes to my attention, that is the time, the opportunity that I would take to reinforce some of these ethics issues and oath, the oath that we took, some of the principles of this oath. That would be the time that I would reinforce those issues of integrity and how important it would be. And yes, it may look minor on the surface, but the fundamental principle that you violated goes much, much deeper. And I would have to get him to understand it's not about so much as, well, you violated policy. To me, I would be putting more emphasis on, you know, your character. Let's develop your character, because again, you know, you may say, well, I won't ask nobody else for no inappropriate pictures, but you may do something in another form because your lack of integrity can't put the two together, you know. So I would have to break it down to you that you would really understand that if you violate the small things, you got to see the bigger picture. And then that takes so many other things that you might want to do off the table. So I think it just comes from leaders developing their subordinates, you know, because we all got to be coached up and, you know, get that kick in the pants sometimes.
Well, like the question I asked, how much of this has he done? Clear. I mean, doing the job. I think the only person I ever heard of that never got a citizen complaint was Alvin Brooks. But at some point in your career, somebody's gonna complain on you. That's not really the issue, because you can be doing the job 100% right and still make 50% of people upset. But what is the complaint? And if you keep getting the same kinds of complaints, then there's more to it than, you know, what one person saying. So I don't know what those other situations were, but I'm leaning on that ain't the first time he asked somebody to do something like that, or, you know, that ain't the first time he had he stepped outside of the line so far. I mean, that's off the chain. I mean, people have done some crazy stuff, but that's crazy.
Well, it's another caveat in that is that this wasn't a single guy. I mean, he had a wife and a family. I mean, so now your actions has affected other people. You know, his wife has to live with the humility of it, and then the loss of income, and his children, you know, I don't know what age they are, but they got to live with that stigma of, you know, how kids can be, you know, and then, you know, the family and friends, it's like, you know, it's like a snowball effect. Your action, it's like a ripple in a pond. You throw a rock in a pond, it's gonna throw waves. Those waves are gonna affect everything around it.
Yeah, that's true. And like I say, a lot of times people don't think about the bigger picture and the impact it's going to have on others, not just them. You know, they think from a very narrow, selfish perspective. And sometimes, you know, you got to help them to see the bigger picture and the impact that it's having on other people, you know, the long-term effect that it has on the public, your family, your friends, you know. So that was one thing that I always tried to be mindful of and still do, is that, you know, I could fuck my whole life up, excuse the expression, but, you know, I got people that's watching me and I don't want to let them down, because, you know, a lot of people say, you know, if it's me, I'll take a risk on myself. But, you know, when you think about, well, what about the other people? You know, your family name, that has to mean something. You know, your children, your classmates, your coworkers. I mean, you don't want to bring them down. And that's what's happening when a lot of these officers do these type things and they go public. It doesn't just affect them. It affects every other officer in uniform.
Yeah, I remember, you guys probably remember too, when the Rodney King incident happened. I think that was what, 93, 94, something like that. And that was on the West Coast in LA. And we were in Jacksonville, Florida, and we were ostracized, and the citizens were mad at us, you know, because of the police officer there did something that was inappropriate on camera. You know, we felt that same brunt of their actions on the East Coast. You know, so it's not just you, your immediate family, it's far reaching when you're in that uniform. because a lot of people, they look at, first of all, your contact with that police, with the police, that may be the only time they've ever interacted with a police officer in their life. So whatever transpires during that interaction, that's how they're gonna look at the whole group, good, bad, or ugly. That's how they're gonna, so you're a representative, just like you said, Sam, of your family name. I'm very proud of my family name, and I try to the utmost, carry it to the highest level. Yeah, I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm gonna own it, and I'm not gonna make excuses why I did what I did. I say, yeah, I did it, and like you said, I effed up. My bad. I learned from it though. But I'm not just gonna be arrogant and say, well, whatever. So what? Other people do worse than that. Or somebody else did it. It don't matter. No, it's me. I'm accountable for my actions, and everybody. If everybody was accountable for their own actions, instead of trying to push it off on society or blame this or blame that, then it'd be, everybody be, the whole world would be a lot better. And going on the thing with the improvement, I think they have in the corporate world, I know they have what they call an employee improvement program, where you mess up, okay, they're gonna give you. It depends on the level of how you messed up. They put you on an employee improvement program. So it's usually a 90-day, window, and you're getting as closer attention to you during that 90-day period. So I think that will, curtail a lot of this stuff that happens in law enforcement. If something like that, more tightening of the schools will put on disciplinary, like you said, the minor disciplinary violations. If tighten the schools on those, and the bigger things wouldn't occur later on.
They have that though, the employee improvement program, and
yeah,
they got the I forgot what they call it, but it's another thing that when you get so many use of force complaints, that triggers an investigation. It's just the thing is, those are mechanisms that are on paper that work when they want them to work. So if you happen to be somebody that the bullseye's on your back, then yeah, all of those mechanisms in place will work very well to get you if that's what they want. The problem is in a place where was it?
They'll also put the sperm egg in the wrong hole. They'll make it fit.
Right.
If it don't fit, they'll try to force it in there. They try to force the rectangle into the triangle, into the square hole.
Correct. Was it
not one of the
Pennsylvania where the officer that was fighting to get his job back? He was fired after he told on some folks, and then they actually lied and put charges on him, and all the charges were dropped. Now he's fighting to get his job back. It's stuff like that. Here you had somebody that was doing the things that we talk about, doing the right thing, and just like Chris Dorner did the right thing, but it turns out he ended up losing his job, except this brother fighting to get it back. Chris Dorner was like, okay, y'all messed my life up, I'm about to mess y'all life up.
And that's frustration. People gonna act up. I mean, when you kick a dog, you kick a dog into a corner, they're gonna do one of two things. They're gonna fight or flight. And a lot of people, they ain't built to run away.
Yeah. Going back to that employee improvement plan, I have been subjected to it. And with the sheriff's office, it's a 90-day process. And it's a lot of work for a supervisor because he has to detail it. He has to follow up. He has to monitor. He has to get regular evaluations. It's a lot of work, but it's effective. And I was being targeted. And when you put emphasis on it, you're going to find something. And so I was put on not one, not two, but I was put on 3 back to back. So I went from 90 days, and they extended it another 90 days. And I got to the almost to the end, and he was documenting every little small thing, and well, you're not improving and you're adding to it, and went to another doctor. I stayed on this damn thing for 9 months, you know, but I was being targeted and I knew it. So, but I said that there's a positive and a negative. If it's implemented correctly, it's a positive thing and it's very effective, but it's a lot of work for a supervisor. And that particular supervisor took on that task because there was a vendetta he was trying to settle, you know, and he was very good at what he did. And so to this day, I applaud him for when he did things the right way. It was like, now this is the way it's supposed to be done, but you using your skills for the wrong reason, in the wrong manner, with bad intention. So I saw how it's supposed to be done, but I knew that the person that was doing it wasn't doing it out of fairness and out of principle. It was purely personal. But that's my situation. So I'm not trying to take away from it. I'm really trying to highlight that there's a positive to it, if done correctly.
Well, what you said made my point. Is those things are in place to catch stuff, but I think they're primarily in place, one, so they can say it's in place, and then two, if they want to get you, they got mechanisms to do it.
Correct. Yeah. So
If you're not one of the chosen, if you're not one of the chosen ones,
it builds you as a person too. If you know, all three of us, we had nothing to hide. We gonna stand on what we did. If we did something wrong, we're gonna own up to it. But if you come at us and you coming at us sideways and you want to fight, come on, let's fight. You know, it sharpens your skills. It makes you better. Like they say, iron sharpens iron. You think you tough? Okay, I'm tough too. Let's see who come out on top. You know, I'm gonna show you that I can survive this. You know, and it pushed me. You know, I've been in situations like that also, and it just made me more determined to. Okay, now I got something to prove. Now I'm gonna show you. I already know what I got. Let me show you what I got, because you don't believe. You don't see it. You know, I might be laid back, but you know, you're gonna get this fire. You finna get this heat. I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna do it in a nice, nasty way, and I'm gonna do it professionally. So you can't touch me. You know, so it kind of, you know, that's where a lot of my articulation came from, because I read a lot. I read a lot of the general orders, and that's the key. You get them with you. If you know the rules of the game, then you know how to play. Then you can play. You can master it. Any chess master, they read the chess. They read chess manuals. They read other people who the chess masters who've lost. They study. I did that. I studied the general orders. I studied the law, state law, and Supreme Court laws. And that's what got me to the point where I'm at. Okay, so it improved me as an officer and as an individual.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing that saved my career. Was I humbled myself to know, you know what? I did probably all the things that they said I did, but I'm a young officer developing, and no one is here to help me develop, but they're attacking me. So I had to go and fight this solo fight. So like you said, Smoke, I read those general orders to know what the tactics that they were using, and I used those same general orders against them to help my cause. So I became more knowledgeable. You know, I became what I despised. You know, so I became like them, and I was one of their worst adversaries, because they started to come after my job early in my career. I'm talking about, I maybe had 4 good years with the sheriff's office, and from there I fought every day. And my fight wasn't with the citizens, because I knew what I was going up against with them, but my fight was always that internal fight. So for 20 years, I fought every day to hold on to my job. But my saving grace was I knew I couldn't fight them like I wanted to, just to come in there talking all big and bad. I had to settle back, put pen to paper, and document and use those same general orders and those same laws to defend myself and hold them accountable. That was my only saving grace. So I had to become a more intelligent officer, and I couldn't go street with them because they wasn't going street with me. They were whooping my ass with that pen and paper. And so I had to arm myself differently.
And one of the biggest things that I found in the discrepancy, and they, it's kind of, after a while, they came to respect me because I knew the general orders backward and forward.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that saved me was knowing when the general order said a person shall do this, or they may do this, or they must do. It's a difference between must, shall, and may. So when you learn those three, because they put those things in certain places for certain reasons. So when you can articulate, no, I didn't, I used my discretion on this because it says officer may, it may do this. I didn't have to, it's like, damn. So then they changed the order. You guys probably got some general orders that they changed because of what you went through.
Oh yeah.
They go back and they rewrote the rules.
And then they inserted supervisory's discretion, because when you came with them with, well, I had some discretion here because general order allowed me to have some discretion, then they rewrote in there with the exception of supervisory discretion. So that trumped you and your discretion. So yeah, we rewrote orders.
Don't say that word.
What?
And the biggest thing to do is, I know they would throw, a lot of times they would throw out stuff, or there have been updates, they throw it out, and it's like a, in case you want to read it type of thing. No, you want to read those updates and those changes. Those are things that you want to read, because just because last year it said a certain thing, this year may be certain. That one change the last month made it be the thing that they get you on this month. So you had to keep those updates. You had to keep just like the every law every year with the state laws. They change constantly. LJ, you know that with the traffic.
Now, here's what's interesting, because people don't. John Q. Citizen doesn't see this aspect of it. They don't put this on cops, but you deal with all of that on a day-to-day basis and go out here and risk life and limb for people you don't know. People don't ever see that part of it. The hell you catching from within and the hell you got to deal with from without.
See, I don't play cards. I'm not a poker player at all, because I'm very, and my wife can tell me, she can tell when something's on my mind because it shows on my face. But in that environment, that's what my poker face was. I would smile, I would be nonchalant, but in here, I was totally different. I was a chess player. I was thinking my moves ahead of time. So they never knew where I was coming from. They never know what, like, dang, they doing all this to you, and you still smiling, you still doing your job? Yeah, I'm a professional. I consider myself a professional. A doctor, he could have had a bad day. He could have got into an argument with his wife, but if he's doing surgery on you that morning, you want him to come in there with his mind right on what he has to do, not on the argument he had before he left the house. So that's how I consider myself as a professional. So anything that was personal going on in my life, I left that for when I clocked out, when I got home. When I got in the door, that's when I unloaded. But until I got inside my residence, I was still on 10.
And here's another dynamic for me, and I'm just giving my experiences, which is a double-edged sword. One is, if you stand up for yourself and just don't accept whatever they do to you, then you can, you risk being labeled rebel or disgruntled employee, and then they could, and possibly now they're gonna start targeting you, because now they just think that you a malcontent. And I've been labeled all that, and I felt like, well, I'm fighting for what I feel is wrong. And yes, you're the supervisor, and I get that, and I respect your position and authority. But if I let you get away with it, then you're not respecting the same general orders and policies that you're holding me to. You just, becoming a rogue supervisor and doing what the hell you want. So yes, I should be able to question it. And so with that, I risked and I was subject to their retaliation. But the other side of that coin was they knew that when they came, I wasn't going to bow down. I wasn't going to roll over. And they knew they had to, there was going to be a fight. They knew it wasn't going to be easy. And they know, well, if I come to Officer Jackson with this, I got to make sure we tight. So they wouldn't come to me with a lot of trivial stuff, So that's the other side. Sometimes you got to stand up for what you believe and what you know is right, and there's going to be some repercussions, and you got to accept that. But over time, I fought my whole career, but they didn't come to me just like if I was a pushover. They knew it when they came. They had to bring their A game because I was going to bring mine. And I was tired. I mean, I just got tired of fighting day in and day out. But I hung in there, made it to retirement, and it's all in the past. But I guess my point being is that, sometimes that getting to the end of your career ain't gonna be easy unless you roll over and play their game. And I just didn't want to play their game. I wasn't built like that.
How do we and I guess this doesn't apply to us because we're not there now. But how does that dynamic change in the law enforcement arena? Because I don't believe that these experiences are specific to one particular department.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
So how does that whole dynamic change?
Everything starts at the top for me. And, so your administrative leaders and your department head, they have to look for leaders that they put in place, their leadership team. They got to, look for strong leaders and fair leaders that lead with integrity, leaders that understand, not to take things personal. It's all about, the good of the department, developing your subordinates, and making sure that there's some harmony within these two levels of the department, from the administration to the supervisors to the line officer. There has to be some mutual respect, and the officer's going to respect the supervisors, and the supervisor's going to respect the administrator. But but you can't use that your position just to run roughshod over people and to both and just to stick out your chest. And I think that's what's happening now, is that a lot of people who are put in these positions of authority are not real leaders, and the leadership in place are not developing them into be good leaders.
That's an excellent segue into something I wanted to bring up. I know you guys probably saw that I posted on our page about the deputies that were rewarded with gift cards, including gift cards to steakhouses and things of that nature for their uses of force. Instead of, like you were saying, Sam, being, having that constructive criticism and that disciplinary action and putting them to the side at the first sign of trouble. These guys were pretty much rewarded from bad behavior. So this is in my neck of woods. We're in Texas, Williamson County. Sheriff's office leader rewarded deputies who used force on the job with steakhouse gift cards, according to 2 former employees, one of whom made the admission to the Texas Rangers, who are investigating the agency's aggressive tactics. Among the deputies who received gift cards to places such as Logan's Roadhouse, were J.J. Johnson and Zach Camden, and these officers were involved in the March 2019 death of Javier Ambler. And Javier Ambler was a black 40-year-old father who was tased 4 times as he shouted that he had a heart condition and could not breathe. And in a recorded interview with the Rangers, the former deputy stated that Commander Steve Deaton rewarded the deputies with what he considered the Wilco, Williamson County, they call it Wilco, he considered them the Wilco badasses. So to get that, to get that title within the department of a Wilco badass, they get the gift cards. He said they had the intention that we were all Wilco badass, and if you went out there and you did your job and you had to use force on somebody and he agreed with it, then you would get a gift card. Pisa was one of the deputies who said it in the audio recording to the Rangers. And one of the former sergeants who he resigned from the department, he corroborated this guy's claim, and he said that Commander Deaton gave the cards for what he considered good uses of force. Now, I'm gonna let everybody, they can go to our page and read the rest of it, but some backstory on Commander Deaton. Commander Deaton, he resigned last September, I believe it was, and what led to his resignation was that the TV program, what is it, something PD, it's kind of like Cops. But anyway, Live PD, yeah, Live PD. Anyway, Commander Deaton, he was holding a briefing with his guys and shooting the crap with his guys. He's like, hey, they had a female producer of the show. He's like, hey, have any of you guys slept with this female producer yet? And the guys kind of has a nervous laughed or whatever. And they was like, no, he's like, seriously, I want one of you guys to sleep with this producer before they leave town. So I guess that'd be bragging rights or whatever. And I think that happened, and that investigation concluded in August of 2019. He resigned the following month. Prior to that, this commander posted on Facebook some elves, and he had one elf as a female elf, looked like a Barbie. No, he had a Barbie doll surrounded by several elves, and it was like she said she woke up and she didn't know where she was, like she had been drugged, and the elves were running around her like they were laughing and giggling, said they had a good time, and that kind of supposedly was like a date rape type of thing. They gave her some roofies and they had their way with her, and he put brown stuff around her mouth. I guess it was a chocolate supposed to, what it's supposed to have been. But and then another thing he posted was like NFL. He didn't like the point that NFL players protesting by the national anthem by kneeling. So he put one of his posts of an elf with a chainsaw cutting the legs off of a football player, an NFL football player elf. So this guy, he's a commander. He's in a position of power. And he's rewarding his guys with gift cards for excessive use of force. And then he's making these type of posts on his Facebook page. And then I did some further research and kind of find out the sheriff, he was a patrol officer with the Austin PD in 2001, I believe. And him and his wife, they won the lottery. It won like $51 million, something like that. And when he resigned, he used his money to run for sheriff. And of course, with the money, he was able to win with everybody saw him. He knew he was the guy that made the big winnings. And so he put his money into, he was a patrol officer, ended up being a sheriff. Prior to that, when he was a patrol officer with the Austin PD, he had got into a conspiracy shooting in, I think it was in '93, supposedly, that he shot a black father under questionable type of terms. They're trying to get that investigation reopened. So this is your leadership. The sheriff brought the commander in because both of them were patrol buddies with Austin PD. So, Sam, you talk about the leadership, and so what kind of discipline do you think these guys will get out there and they'll get if they go out there and use excessive force, which I think one of Deaton, he had an excessive force complaint. No, Shody, the sheriff, he had an excessive force complaint prior to leaving APD. We had a 14-year-old kid. He grabbed him in a half Nelson, slammed him up against the car, mushed his face into the sidewalk. Needs to say he ended up settling out of court. I think it was like $21,000, something like that, after he won the lottery. But he had money to make that go away. But then he was a patrol officer who did this excessive force on his kid. Then he brings his buddy who has this mentality, okay, I'm gonna reward excessive force or, force, with gift cards. I never heard that in my life. Whether you justified or unjustified, you don't get rewarded for having to put hands on somebody. That just, that encourages bad behavior.
Right.
Man, what you just read, I don't even have words for. That's sickening.
But you can't make this stuff up. This is real. Like they say, truth is stranger than fiction. This is real life.
That is sickening. I don't even have the words.
So how do you feel? How do you think a citizen, the average citizen, feels when they go to a police department to complain about being violated with this type of atmosphere? How far do you think that complaint is going to go? So you can see the citizens' frustration when they get shot down with this letter that comes back to them to say, okay, we looked at your complaint and it's unfounded. We ain't found nothing there. It's nothing to see here. That causes frustration.
It causes mistrust, and that's what's eroding in today's law enforcement is public mistrust. And when you lose the public trust, you lose everything. I mean, you can't really function anymore once you lose the public trust.
So when we put all of this stuff together, and you had officers out in LA that got ambushed, it sets up, in my view, y'all tell me if I'm wrong, it sets up for things like that ambush to happen more frequently because people are hitting their rev limiter. They come into the end of themselves and they don't have no other recourse.
It's frustration. I mean, you think about it. You got people who, due to COVID, they've lost their jobs. They may possibly be on the verge of losing their homes, have already lost their homes. They can't provide for their families. And then they have, they get violated. They're walking down the street minding their own business, like the guy jogging, and he get, you look like you fit the description type of thing. And it's like, look, dude, or they just get hassled. That frustration is a ticking time bomb. These people, you can't go nowhere, you can't do this, you can't do that, what can you do? Then you get this other pressure put on you. I mean, it's got to go, so something's going to blow. You put a top on the lid of a pot, you put it on the stove, you turn it up on high, it's going to come off. It's going to start bubbling, and that top going to start bouncing.
But what is it gonna take? Because I don't like reading or hearing about police officers being killed, particularly the whole ambush thing. I don't like that kind of stuff. But the kinds of things like you just read are the things that promotes that. And that's not an area of life that we want to, go down. We don't want to go down that road where we're just having police officers being picked off. But I mean, man, you can't be doing stuff like that. You're talking about rewarding people for use of force. Like, who does that?
I mean, especially in today's climate. I mean, if it's a guy, if I was active duty police right now, if I had to tase somebody, I rarely lose I think I used my taser maybe 3 or maybe 4 in 23 years, maybe 5 times at the most. 5 times.
That's like 4 times more than me.
Yeah. And I was in, I had people with guns on them and all kind of stuff. And I mean, in generally, when I did it, they were violent criminals. They would trying to run away, and I popped them with the taser. Once I cuffed them up, that was it. Game over. You know, it was like rodeo. Once you rope them up, you know, say time. You know, that's it. But if, like you were saying, if you're rewarding bad behavior, it's like throwing the rock in hand and, you know, hiding your hand. You know, up to now, up to social media and Facebook Live, the police agencies have been able to control the narrative. As we've seen time and time again, they say one thing happened, and then months later, it's like when they look at the whole totality of everything, it's like, that's not what happened. Why y'all didn't tell us the truth from the beginning? That's not what happened. That's where the frustration builds up. And like you said before, I do not like to see that officers have gotten shot or injured or even hurt in the line of duty. But you have to look at why or how these things got to this point. You know, it's not right. It's not right for officers to go out there and do stuff to citizens, you know, excessively. And like I said before, a police officer needs to be held to a higher standard. And any type of use of force, I've been with 2 agencies, and every policy with the use of force of what's the level of force to take somebody's life, that has to be your last reasonable resort. And a lot of those things I've seen, that wasn't the last resort. I mean, sometimes you have to go from your officer presence to, you know, shooting somebody. But there's levels to that. Sometimes you can just talk to somebody. Sometimes you can get out you can get out the car. You can put hands on them. But like I said, you got leadership like that that's going to condone, you know, excessive force or condone use of force. You got these guys out there, they want to get that bragging rights, they want to get that title, and they want to get that gift card. So, you know, you got the citizens that's suffering for it.
Whether they get a gift card or not, you green lighting violating the law enforcement code of ethics. Like, you're given a green light to do that. And again, that's sickening to me. Like, this make you want to put pause on a what he is, a captain?
He's a commander.
Commander.
He was a commander before he retired. But it took all of that. And the final straw that led to his retirement was the complaint from the Live PD of him being sick, because numerous officers were in the investigation, and they said he did say that, and they had recorded. You know, they try to play it off like, well, he was just joking or whatever. But if you're a person in that position, you can't make jokes like that.
Yeah, no professionalism.
So like you say, Sam, all the time, it starts at the top. It starts with the leadership. The sheriff has to hold his people accountable so that they can hold their subordinates accountable. When everybody on the same page, then you have less problems. I mean, you're gonna have problems. You're gonna have people complaining. Like you said before, I've had so many complaints. I've had police officers, one police officer's son complained on me because he said that I threatened to kill him. I said, no, I didn't threaten him. I told him I was gonna do it. Because he said that I was taking him to jail for something, and he's like, well, I hope you your family be safe. You better watch your family. They can get, something could happen to them or whatever. I pulled over the car. I stopped. I said, look, you better be ready to be taken off the face of this earth, because I will do that to you. You threaten my family. That's it. And I went immediately and I told my sergeant that's what happened. And I went and told the officer. So the officer went, he had his son to make a file complaint. They had me internal. They asked me the question. I said, no, I didn't say it like that. This is what I said. I said, yeah, I will take you off the face of this earth. You threaten my family. They said, okay. Nothing happened. They dismissed the complaint, but I was straight up. And I meant what I said, and I said what I meant.
Well, protecting your family is far different than getting steak dinner for, I mean, I'm gonna have to flush that. That's gonna bother me for a little while. I'm gonna have to flush that.
But that's, I mean, but you think about it, there's so much of that going on in other departments. This is not the only department that happens in.
Right.
There's other all across the country, all across the world that does that. And it's the people that, you know, I remember when we were younger, the police were something to be looked at. The police didn't go to somebody's house and it was a serious crime. Something serious must have happened. You know, we seen police cars all the time. We still try to stay out their way, you know, but you know, they never came up there. They never stopped us riding our bikes in the street when we were young. But now you got, you know, I know the traffic is different and everything like that, but you know, they're going out their way to be extra just to make a name for themselves within the department, you know, putting, you know, excessively tasing somebody who's claiming, you know, they have heart conditions and they're, you know, middle-aged or elderly. That ain't cool. You know, it's not professional and it's not right. You know, ethically, it's not right.
Well, Lord, appears you going down with the sunset. We down to just your head on your profile. There you go. Just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah,
Didn't bother him. You can see it on his face.
I sunk low into my chair. That story bothered me, man. I don't like stuff like that.
But like I put on my post, that's the uncomfortable truth. I mean, that's what's going on, and people need to know that. You know, everything is not, you know, roses and chocolate drops. You know, people ain't just doing stuff and then saying stuff for no reason, feeling a certain type of way just because they you know, what neighborhood they live in or what complexion of their skin or, you know, what political party they're in. No, these things are happening to people every day. You know, it can happen to me, you, any of our family member or friends. And it's not just blacks, having some white, Hispanics, Asians. It's a thing, and it's unfortunately I see a lot of law enforcement posts in these law enforcement groups, and it's more of a us against them mentality. And that just breeds that toxic, you know, that breeds that toxicity and that darkness, that negative energy.
Speaking of some of those law enforcement boards and posts, there's a lot of racist people in those groups that happen to wear or have worn the uniform.
Like I always say, when somebody show you who they are, believe them. Believe them. I actually had a couple on one of my posts I made, and it kind of I just straight out asked them, yes or no, do you condone white supremacy, or do you denounce it? They were not one of them. After going back and forth about 3 or 4 times, they finally said, "Okay, I'll denounce it." I said, "Okay, that's all I had." The other one said, "Well, I'm not even gonna justify that with an answer." It's like, you don't have to. I already know. You already told me. You already know what it is. So those are the things that social media is making all these keyboard warriors and giving the keyboard courage to people that would say things that they normally wouldn't say to your face.
And they also have a leader that has made being racist cool. So in these are police forums, they feel it's a safe space to be racist and to say all kind of racist stuff, and I mean, ridiculous.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the passing of Supreme Court Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I would like to offer my condolences to her family and loved ones, and then kind of talk about this upcoming nomination and the differences between the House and the Senate's opinion on replacing her prior to the election. So I kind of segue into that.
Well, my whole issue with that, I am stuck trying to understand or trying to figure out why we have so many different ways of doing things just based on who's in charge of stuff. Like last year, or not last year, 2016, when a Supreme Antonin Scalia, I believe it was, when he died, it was no, we're not going to replace a judge until the voters speak. Now it's, oh, we're going to hurry up and replace them. If the president is the president, then let that be the precedent. It shouldn't matter who's in charge or who's running things. That just reveals, like, to, again, you know, stuff we've been talking about, our lack of ethics and lack of character. And I'm losing faith in humanity.
And that's why I wanted to put emphasis on this particular issue, because it does come down to our politicians having little to no principle. And again, I'm seeing both Democrats, Republicans, both members of the House, members of the Senate, they're flip-flopping. And so what it comes down to, their actions are not based on what's good for the country. It's all about politics now. And these individual politicians are making decisions based on self-interest and power moves for their own political gain or their own party gain. And this issue would have never came about if one party had not tried to make a power move several years back. Because in my opinion, in all reality, the president gets to make that decision. And as long as he's in office and still have that presidential power and authority, I believe he can do it. But it only became an issue when a certain member brought it to his party and they made it out more political, and now it became a power move. And so now it's all about who's in power and who's going to gain from this. It's no longer about, well, let the president, whoever it may be, do what he's supposed to do, because that's his authority. And within that, I haven't heard that there was anything prior that says when he can and cannot make that decision when he's in office. But a precedent was set back during Obama. So it was a power move. And now you make those power moves, and you're supposed to come across as though I'm basing it on principles and legal reasons. And then as soon as the scenario changed, you flip-flop. And that was my whole point about our leaders have no integrity, no principles that they can stand on. They just back and forth. And I don't know who to trust, when to trust, and why to trust them anymore.
And see, us three, I mean, we were in a position of law enforcement where we kind of interacted with a lot of politics, a lot of politicians, but to the average citizen, they have it even 10 times worse, because they put their faith, these are people that's supposed to be standing for the people, and they're supposed to have the people's best interests in heart. And like you said before, Sam, in 2016, prior to Barack Obama taking office, Mitch McConnell stated, hey, we're not going to pass anything this guy, I don't know if it was his first, I think it was his first term. He's like, we're not going to pass anything this guy, we're not going to support him in anything.
Going to stonewall everything. From
before he even got inaugurated, before inauguration day, before he put his hand on that Bible and swore in as president. And that's one thing, they stood on their word on that one subject the whole time. And the same, like you said before, the same people who had those words when Justice Scalia passed away, they was like, no, it's an election year and we can't, got to let the people speak and make their vote for the president. Now, President Obama, he made his nomination in February of that year. And
Right.
this now 2 months, this is September.
Correct.
From February to September, you can almost have a baby, So, I mean, it's like a double standard. Like you said, it's like, okay, you have no integrity, you have no ethics, you want to move, like I said before, moving the goalpost. You're going to move the goal line. Okay, yeah, we said before, you had 1st and 10, you had 3rd and 1, but we changed our mind. Now you got 3rd and 8. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
So people need to pay attention and look to see who's doing what and cast your votes accordingly. Do not rest on, okay, there's a lot of people that don't like Trump, so I don't need to go out there because everybody else going to vote. No. That's a lot of people that don't like McConnell, so they're going to vote against him, so I ain't got to go. No. Get in line, cast your vote. If possible, vote in person. Like Sam says, after every broadcast, vote, vote, vote. This is more important. This is probably going to be one of the most important elections of all time. Because this country has been, and we've seen it, you've seen it with your own eyes and heard it with your own ears, the leadership is not there. And it changes with the wind. It's like, well, yeah, we said this, but that ain't what we meant. We meant that. No, when you make a decision, you stand on that. And if it's right or wrong, you accountable for it. So, we got to look at what's really going on and hold them accountable. It's more of a money game now in DC. It's like, what can I get now and what am I going to be able to get when I get out?
We all know I don't like politics, so at all.
But it's the only thing unfortunately, it's the only rules we got to, it's the only thing we can do right now because that's the hand we're dealt. So we got to play our cards. The only part we got now, and we have our ancestors who fought for this right to be able to go and cast our vote. So we'd be remiss not to do that.
Y'all ever seen that show Designated Survivor?
Yeah.
That's what need to happen, and I feel better about where we at. Then I'll be all right at that point. We get there, then I'm all in. We can start over.
But society needs a reset. I don't know what this is going to take because it seems like capitalism has taken precedence over everything, over morality, over just the common decency. It's all about the dollar bill. I got it, you don't. So you can get your, I got mine, you get yours the best way you can. Some people, the best way they can is going to be to stick a pistol in your head. That is going to change your mind. But that's real life. That's what some people are frustrated. They get to that point. It's like, okay, I ain't got nothing to lose. What they going to put me in jail? So I get 3 houses in the cot, health care.
That's essentially what Chris Dorner was. It was like y'all taking everything away from me. So he snapped. Same concept.
And then with the, like you said before, with the highest law enforcement officer of the land stating that they're going to make protests. They're going to change that to, you're committing treason. That's a God-given right. That's like America was founded on protests. If it wasn't for protests, the Boston Tea Party, they shouldn't have did that. They should have laid down and did whatever Britain said they should have did. That's what they should have went by. Don't be wasting all that tea.
They don't have a problem with you having rights. They have a problem with you exercising your rights. That's the issue. You can have them, just don't exercise them.
Like me having a brand new Benz, but I just can't drive it.
Right. Because a lot of this stuff functions on ignorance. So it's assumed you don't know your right. That's why some law enforcement officers do the things that they do, because it's assumed you don't know your rights. So you may get stopped. That's why we say on here all the time, people need to read and study the Bill of Rights. Terry versus Ohio.
And one of the things I would do, actually, when I was a patrol officer, I would actually take my criminal handbook, code book, and I would read the statute to the person I was talking to. And I would let them see that I'm not making this ain't my rule, this is state law. You know, and it makes a difference. It is transparency. You know, it's just being transparent. And like you said before, LJ, you know, it kind of makes you take a step back and say, damn, you know what, who can I trust? What do I trust? What can I believe in? Because everything looks like it's a lie.
Well, a lot of the politicians, again, it's all about self-interest, and they're writing the laws of the land that really benefits them. They're writing them to escape accountability or to increase their power and their wealth. And that's what they're doing. And that's why I think Trump has so many followers, because he has got them to believe that economics equates to money, money equates to power, and damn those that don't have it. So it's not about unity anymore, it's about power. And he is making his followers believe that having money is power. No matter how much you have, you just got to have a little bit more than the guy over there, and that will put you in a better position in society. And so he's really building power for himself and his family long term. And everybody else who's supporting them, they may be getting some of the crumbs, because if they're a business person, they think, oh, he's doing this for me. No, he's doing this. He's putting laws in place that will benefit his businesses going forward. He done ran his businesses into the ground. He just wanted to be president so he could learn how the game is played. What you said and what we said earlier, when you learn how the game is played, you become a more potent competitor. And that's all he wanted to get into the White House, was get behind the curtains and find out what y'all doing behind these curtains. And he's finding out all the secrets. And they gave him some power that he can now change the rules of the game in his favor. You know, even with this, these judges that he's been able to appoint during his presidencies, he's stacking the deck in his favor, especially the Supreme Court, because he knows when he leaves office, a lot of criminal action and civil action is going to be taken. And he has always used the courts to delay his prosecution and his being held accountable. Now he's stacking the deck where he can hold all this stuff in bay when it starts coming down the pipe. These are all power moves that benefit Trump, and people don't see it. These are not about benefiting the people. Some people will benefit from it, but this is all about protecting him and his brand.
I always look at a lot of movies, and I think one of the reasons, another reason why I always put Hidden in Plain Sight, is because a lot of the movies that we watched and have watched, they're actually subliminal messages. Look at the Wizard of Oz. Everything was illusionary. You know, everything until they got behind the curtain, they saw that this weak wimp of a man, you know, was trying to project strength, that they actually, you know, that wall everything came down, and everybody, that's when the sunshine came out, and everybody was like, okay, it ain't like we ain't got to be living like this, because that's not what it is. So now that's kind of projected throughout. If you look back throughout politics, it's been the same thing. It's been projected one way, but it's actually something else. You know, you can look at a lot of the wars we fought. You know, you can look at Vietnam. That's a war that they didn't win. You know, they went over there for one thing, and it's like countless lives were lost and nothing gained. You know, then 9/11 happened, something happened, I still, it's a lot of questionable things with that. It's like, especially how a plane just disintegrates, but, I digress, but they went over to Bin Laden. They're supposed to have all these weapons of mass destruction. They go over there and none was found. It's like fear. You can control people either by force or fear or leadership. Leadership is not there. Leadership is not there. It's either been, lately it's been controlled by force or it's been controlled by fear.
Well, here are some real world scenarios that I've been concerned with this whole situation, and that is having judges in place to uphold specific ideological views and not upholding how the Constitution is written or the way it was written. And so what I'm concerned with is the officer that does the illegal stop, and, the person might have heard us say, hey, survive the encounter, live to fight another day, take it to court. They take it to court. And these judges that have been strategically put in place throws those kind of cases out. That sets a new legal precedence now that you don't have to have probable cause to stop people now. And so I'm worried about the constraints on the citizens' rights being violated by the authority figures. And I can see that taking place if we continue with how things are going in DC.
I think one of the main reasons for our platform is for awareness, for everybody to be aware of what your rights are, and make you dig deep and do your own homework to make yourself more knowledgeable about what your rights are, because that is very important. Because anybody can blow smoke up your butt and say, well, no, that's not your right. You can't do this. You got to do what I tell you to do. No, if you know your rights and you say, well, no, that's not what, state law XYZ says, then they kind of take a step back and be like, okay, this person knows about what they're talking about. Let me back up. This ain't the one. I need to go, and say, well, I'm gonna give you a warning. You guys heard that before. I'm gonna give you a warning this time. I'm not gonna do nothing. I'm gonna give you a warning. I'm gonna let you go. No, they had to let you go. They know that they had to back down because you was gonna be a formidable foe, and 9 times out of 10 you was gonna end up with a win in hand, and you was gonna win that encounter.
It's kind of like this situation that Joanna she posted a couple weeks ago, where she was being dealt with by officers a certain way until she said a couple trigger words that let that officer know, hey, she might know something, or she knows what she's talking about, and the whole situation changed then. And yeah, that's cool for now, but when, like I said, we get down the road and if we have 4 more years of what we're dealing with now, who's to say it goes like that?
But that's one of the things that is stated about, when they say get on code, everybody need to get on code and know your rights.
Yeah.
It's strength in numbers. It's strength in numbers.
And it's right there for you. It's not a secret. You search it up online. Don't search up Wikipedia though. That's not reliable, but it's right online. Search it up. Read it for yourself. If you can't read, find somebody to read it for you, or have Siri dictate it to you.
Get an audio book. Get an audio book.
That too.
Well, let me interject. We have run up on our hour and a half or in that area. So it's that time that we get to the point where we kind of close out this discussion and we try to leave on a positive note. And Anybody got anything?
Before you do that, I got to read this. I just saw this pop up. RV said this, and this is like powerful. Knowing your rights is one thing, but if you stack the courts with judges who don't follow the Constitution, but rather follow ideology, then your rights are worthless. And that's kind of what I was alluding to, is the people that are being set up now are more concerned with following an ideology than what's right.
It's a basic chess move. Anytime you play chess, you move your pieces to set people up because you know what your final move you want. You know what you're trying to get to. So you're going to sacrifice that pawn, a knight, maybe even a rook. You know, you may even sacrifice your queen, but it's for a reason. So that's what they're doing right now. It's playing the game. If you look at it as a game, then you know, okay, I need to learn how to play this. If you don't know how to play it, you're gonna be lost. You don't know how to play it, you're gonna get crushed.
Well, the things that allow Black folk to be who we are and what we are in this country right now are basically words on paper, and the interpretation of those words on paper. So if those words on paper get interpreted a different way, then you get viewed a different way. And there are people being put in places federally to interpret those words not in favor for you. I'll say it like that. All right, Sam, as you were.
You can go first with your parting words, or was those your last positive?
No, I try to be a little bit more upbeat. Because there's been some things here said tonight that just grieved my spirit. But I'm still gonna say vote early. Don't wait till November 3rd. And I'm still going to say read and study 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment. And 13th Amendment as well, so you can see where some of this stuff coming from, because that's what they're trying to get back to. And Terry versus Ohio. And all case law, Rodriguez versus Illinois, I think, is a big one. But all case law related to traffic stops. You need to read and study that. And like they used to say back in the day with G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle.
Mine gonna be short and sweet. 4 words. How about them Cowboys?
You took my thunder.
That's my boys.
But I was gonna go, what about them Jags? We lost, but I think we got a quarterback, and I think we gonna be okay for the future. Go Jags.
Boo. All right, whatever.
All right, 43 days remaining till November 3rd. Vote, 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 and I'm out.
Check your
Love y'all.
status.
Peace.
Make sure you register. Check your voting status. Make sure you register. Make sure you know where your precincts are, or the if you need to mail it in, how long? Mail it well in advance. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait a week before. Do it in advance.
Get your ballot and drive
I'm
to
going
the election center.
I'm going early. I'm vote early. Go in person. Wear your mask. Peace.